something bigger than me. I just wanna travel the world. I just wanna meet someone different from me. I just wanna travel the world. To see and smell and taste something completely new. I just wanna travel the world. I just wanna see it with someone like you. I just wanna travel the world. The world. The world. The world. Travel the world. Here's your host, David Cole. Let's get started.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting episode of Our Offbeat Life. I'm thrilled to have a very special guest with us today. He's a mindset and travel coach who believes in helping digital nomad families find freedom, flexibility, and balance. So please join me in welcoming Addy Weiland. Hello.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Very excited to have you today. So before we get started, can you tell the people a little bit about who you are?
Sure. So, like you said, my name is Addy Weiland, and I am by trade a licensed clinical social worker, and I have my own online private practice where I see my clients. I got into that with the intention of being able to move around and just do what I wanted to do, kind of be location independent. So on the digital nomad side, the family travel side, me and my husband and my two kids, well, it started off with one kid, then we added another kid later on, had been traveling around in an RV in the US for the past 4 years. And so that was kind of our intro into this lifestyle. And then also coming up, we are about to go on another adventure where we head internationally to travel for a little bit until we don't really want to anymore. So brand new waters for us. We're super, super excited. And then my coaching business, which is a brand new business, about like a year. I'm a travel and mindset coach, really focused on helping digital nomad families find, like that balance, that freedom, connection. I'm in a little bit of a pivot with that, but I can talk about that later. So.
Sounds good. All right. So let's let our listeners get to know you a little bit better, the little lightning round.
Sure.
Water, coffee, soda, tea. What's your preferred drink?
Definitely coffee. I'm a coffee girl. I used to be a big iced coffee girl. That was like my thing. But currently we're staying with my parents. And my stepdad is kind of like a connoisseur coffee. He grinds his own beans. So he has a special, we call it Papa's Blend coffee. And at first it was too strong for me, but now I'm like, love that coffee. I just told my mom that I'm really going to miss it when we leave. Luckily, we're going to Europe. So, I mean, the coffee is pretty great over there too, but definitely a coffee girl.
Excellent. All right. I love the coffee. Yes. All right. Cat or dog?
Probably dog. Me and my husband had 3 boxers before the kids. So we were obsessed with boxers. I don't have any now because we travel and they all passed away. But like I said, we're living with my mom and we kind of just adopted these outdoor cats. My daughter's obsessed with cats. And so I'm kind of becoming like more of a cat person. If we had a house, I wouldn't be opposed to getting a cat. So both?
So both. All right. All right. Pool or beach?
Definitely the beach. We love the beach. That's like a big part of our travels. We say that we want to go to like, our bucket list would be to hit all of the beautiful beaches in the world. So definitely beach.
That's awesome. Yes. I love checking out different types. We've never made it to a green beach yet. That's one of the goals.
Oh, I don't even know about that. So that's definitely a goal.
Yeah, I've seen the pink sand, the black sands, and the normal white sands. But yes, there's a green beach. There's a green sand beach that my wife really wants to go to down in Ecuador. So.
Oh, that sounds awesome. I'll have to check that out.
City or countryside?
That one's hard too. I mean, probably city. I think we're more city people. We love the city in our travels. Whenever we've gotten to go to New York or DC, we really love to explore the city. Although we don't mind maybe like more of like, maybe not countryside, but like the mountains, we love that too. But I would say probably city.
Yeah. Okay. And would you rather have unlimited free flights or a magical RV that can take you anywhere?
Probably since we're going international, I would say, well, I don't know, maybe a magical RV actually, because then we could just go in the RV and then you wouldn't have to get on a flight
There you go.
and be
Yeah.
more. Yeah,
RV would
probably RV.
take more of your stuff with an RV too.
True. Yes. So I can pack more.
All right. And if you could hop into a time machine and visit any historical event, era, anything with your family, where would you go and why?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. What historical event would I? Well, I guess this just popped into my mind. Me and the kids really love Hamilton, and right now I haven't seen it live, but I'd love to see it live. But I've seen I think it's like the Netflix or whatever, the special. But right now, the kids and I have recently got into the soundtrack. They really love the soundtrack. So maybe sometime during that time, just to like go back and see like where the ideas started to like, let's go against the British and like create our own country. I think that'd be kind of cool.
That would that would be really cool. Yeah. We were lucky enough that right before we left Chicago, we ended up winning the lottery tickets to see Hamilton. So we got the free
Oh my
tickets.
God.
It was so
I'm
cool.
so jealous. Yes. That's like definitely bucket list. I would love to go see it live. And I told my
Yeah.
husband it's like my greatest like winning, like winning as a parent because now they like really love the music and they like ask for it. So I'm like, yes, I instilled
Yes.
that in them.
You get a little bit of a music introduction to the kids. You get a little bit of history. You get a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So cool. So,
Exactly. It's part of our unschooling.
all right, very good. So you started by sharing a little bit about who you were. Now, talk about your journey to becoming a digital nomad. So you've got this passion now that you share with other families, helping them do it. How did you start?
Yeah. So how we started was, maybe about 5, 6 years ago, I guess, like way back before kids. Me and my husband lived in a suburb outside of Austin in Texas. We loved that first house. We had dogs, those are kind of like our kids. And then when we were deciding to have my daughter, we were thinking about like, well, we didn't really have a whole lot of family there. So we are like, we kind of want to move back to family to have my daughter. So we did. And we moved to a very small kind of cities in South Texas where my mom lived. I got this awesome job working at a college counseling center. It was kind of like my dream job. I was like a manager there. I really loved it. We had my daughter, and then after she was born, we had just been going back and forth of like, do we buy a house here? Do we want to settle here? And although I loved my job, we didn't really love the area, and we couldn't really see raising her there. We didn't necessarily want to, or probably could afford to go back to Austin. So we were just kind of like, oh, we don't know where we want to, put down roots. But I think that's like a big question that a lot of the families have before they go into this lifestyle. They're just like debating. So one random day, I don't know if you're familiar, because I think it's just a Texas, like South thing, but with Buc-ee's, it's like a big, huge, awesome gas station down here. And so it's very popular with RVers. It's just like a really cool gas station. I don't even know how to explain it. But we were at Buc-ee's and we were getting gas. And I just looked over and I saw not a fifth wheel. The name is escaping me, but like the big bus ones, Class
Oh,
C's, I think.
okay.
We saw a big Class C and I just looked over and it was just like, ding, like a light bulb, a download, whatever you want to call it. And I told my husband, what if we like bought an RV and we just travel around the country, And again, this is like 5 years ago. So it was kind of right before COVID, right before like the RV boom, I guess. And my husband's always down for whatever, typically. And he was like, I mean, yeah, we could figure out that'd be like super cool. So again, we didn't really have like super solid roots on where we were, except for my job, really. So I'm our family, of course, but I think that made it a little bit easier. So yeah, from there, this idea that just we couldn't get out of our heads was planted. And so we just started doing research. How do we do this? What do we need? Do families do this? Can I go online, et cetera, et cetera. Again, this was literally right before COVID. So a lot of therapists weren't really using online as much as they are now. but it was being done. It was being done actually a lot in the VA. So I found a Facebook group with a kind of a rogue therapist that was doing it and said we could do it ethically. And I started just going into that, how to build my business that way. And we found a couple of families on Instagram. Again, this is kind of before the big boom that were already doing it. So we're like, wow, like people do this. And then slowly but surely, I started building my online business, setting up all that stuff that I needed. I think I started seeing clients a little bit before I left while I was still full-time working. We bought the truck, we bought the RV, we moved into the RV. We lived in the RV for a little bit before we actually launched. I think we had a launch date, but we pushed it a little bit because our launch was right around COVID. And, that was just a disaster. And then we just decided to go for it. It was very scary. Of course, just leaving, probably leaving the job was the hardest thing because like I had a lot of doubt of, like I said, it was a really good job. I really enjoyed what I was doing. And not to like say for sure, but more than likely, I probably could have moved up in that job, had a lot of job security and good benefits. So it was a pretty big risk to give all of that up to start my own business, pack up my daughter. I think she was 2 at the time, maybe 2 or 3 at the time. And, my husband kind of knew RVs, but he never really driven any or like hauled anything big like that. But he's pretty good at he's a very quick learner with stuff like that. So that was good. But yeah, and I remember specifically when we moved into the RV, we lived in the RV maybe for like a year. And I feel like that was the hardest time because it was kind of like that in between time where we weren't traveling. And I was just thinking to myself, like, I didn't do all of this to like not travel. Like we wanted to travel, right? So it was hard to like sit and wait and be patient and trust the process.
Yeah.
But luckily we did. And then we went and it was amazing. Obviously challenges, but so glad that we did it.
Oh yeah, there's nothing worse than that in between period where you buy it and then you want to get going, but you're loading it or you're winding down things or all that stuff that comes up until you can get on the road and go.
Yes. Yes. It was like this very like antsy, like it was a hard time for us. I feel like that middle period.
But you've been going, and how long have you been going on the road now?
Yeah. So I think our launch date, I think it was May. It was either May or August of 2020. And then we just recently came off the road November of 2020.
And so before that, what was your specialty like with your therapy? Like what kind of clients did you normally work with?
So at the counseling center, you really work with whoever comes in. And so I worked with a lot of young people, obviously in college. I saw a ton of anxiety, depression, stress, burnout, all of that stuff. But I had a special interest in working with trauma before I worked at the counseling center. So I had a specialty in really wanting to work with people who like just working through past trauma and how that showed up. So that's what I work with now, mostly in my practice. So I work with Gen Z, millennials, just working through past trauma, kind of childhood stuff now.
Wow. So yeah, so some deep stuff that you had to work on.
Yes.
And you had to do all that through computer communication like this.
Yes. So that it was a little different at first because, like I said, not really a lot of people were doing it. I certainly had never done it as a therapist. Ironically, when I started this practice, again, it was right during COVID time. So our counseling center went fully online. So it's kind of like getting practice in both places at my job and then my like side job, I guess. But pretty, shortly after starting it really wasn't, getting like the tech and all of that figured out, obviously. It really wasn't that bad. I would definitely say one of the hardest things with doing it in RV is obviously the noise because it's a small space. I did it in our bedroom. We had a mid bunk. I don't know if people are familiar with RVs, but basically we had a middle room. Like when you walk in to the left is kind of the kitchen and living room. Then the mid bunk kids' bedroom was right there. And then you go up the stairs and the bedroom's a little bit. Fifth wheels are pretty big. So you definitely have a lot of space. But I did it in the bedroom. We kind of converted this dresser to be my desk. And then I would just try to soundproof the room as much as possible. So I'd put like towels underneath, like on top, like I put a sound machine on the outside of the door. I wore headphones. So, of course, they can never hear my clients, but sometimes my clients could hear my kids because, of course, I had a 2, 3-year-old and then later an infant. So, but really, my clients were very gracious, and I would always just kind of disclose. Or maybe I did. I don't really remember, but I just said, I live in a small space. I have young kids. So if you hear them, I'm sorry about that, but definitely they can't hear you. I told them about all the stuff I have. And I would attempt to like get my husband to go out when I would see my clients, but it didn't always work out that way.
Yeah, it's good to have supportive spouse when you have a job that requires you to be focused on an individual like that. So
Totally, totally. And definitely with internet challenges, I did quite a few sessions in my car as well. So that was another challenge that I know lots of people, especially, 4 years ago, now there's Starlink and lots of really amazing options for internet, but back then it was a little tricky.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to talk about travel fatigue from a traveler who also is somebody who gives advice and works with people with this type of thing. So, how do you define fatigue as a person in the industry who's working with people like this?
Yeah, for sure. The way that I kind of define it is that whenever you are feeling very overwhelmed, burnt out, exhausted, cranky, kind of due to traveling all the time or moving frequently, right? I almost call it like travel burnout. And I think it's just a thing that happens to a lot of us for various different factors that we can talk about. But I would say that's kind of how I define it.
Okay. And so then what are some of the common signs that people might not recognize right away?
Yeah, so I think definitely irritability is probably the biggest one. I think the red flag for us is when we had maybe been traveling too much or too quickly, or the different things that lead to travel fatigue. I just noticed extra snappy with my husband, over silly things, extra impatient with my kids, kind of like more yelling, just kind of that almost that simmering, irritability where it's just you stub your toe and then you're like freaking out. What a small thing kind of like pushes you over the edge. I would definitely say irritability. The other thing that me and my husband would joke about a lot, and I just call it like beauty fatigue, but I don't know if there's an official word for it, is that, at sometimes when you know that you're kind of getting into that travel burnout, it's like you go to this beautiful place and you're like, another waterfall, great. I'm like, you just don't appreciate it as much. That kind of all factor has like gone down to like very minimal, another museum, like great, another this kind of like thing. So I think we used to joke about that, like, oh gosh, this is just like another, getting into that like beauty fatigue. I think that's another big one. I think definitely struggling with indecision, like having a hard time making decisions. When it comes to traveling, any really way you do it, I think like in an RV, internationally, etc., there's a lot of planning involved, right? You have to figure out where you're going to go and where you stay and all of those things. So I think when you get to that travel burnout part and you just don't even care, or you want to like flip a coin, or you're just over it, that's probably another sign of it. And then I think another sign is just that tiredness that you may feel that is not even really sleep related. Like you could get a great night rest, but then you still wake up, kind of like I talk about like that bone tired in your soul sort of thing. When you're just so tired all the time and kind of like over it, I feel like that's another sign of travel
Uh,
burnout, travel fatigue.
Got it. Yeah, I'm like relating to you on here. I'm sure some of our listeners are like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I've been that way." Snappy. Okay, yeah. Burned
Yes,
out. Yeah, there's a lot of times where
totally.
we said, "Oh, we've seen all of the ruins, or we've been to every one of them in Mexico or something like that." So,
Yes.
yeah, where you
Yes.
get that way. So, why is it important for digital nomad families to be aware of travel fatigue?
Yeah, I think it's just something to, especially so when it happens, you're not like, what the heck is going on? Like, why am I acting like this? Why am I snapping to my husband? Why am I kind of just in this maybe like negative mood, negative space, right? I think just having more awareness and being able to spot it, like, oh, okay, yeah, this is probably, travel burnout, travel fatigue. I think it's a pretty common thing across the board. I think a lot of families at some point who live this lifestyle feel this way at one time or another. So like normalizing it doesn't mean that you know, don't appreciate this lifestyle, or really doesn't have to mean anything more than what it is.
Yeah. And I think I agree on a lived it experiential type of a level because, 5 years of travel for us, you've been doing it for 5 years as well. You get burnt out if you see the same thing over and over again.
Totally.
Even if it is something totally different, it feels the same because you've been doing that type of thing for a while. I think people even in a day job get that way as well when they're staring at their
Yeah.
cubicle walls.
Right. Or just, yeah, even in, if you have a sticks and bricks home, right? Doing the same thing, all the time can get pretty monotonous.
So, what are some ways that we can manage it or minimize travel fatigue during long journeys like this?
Yeah. So I feel like the number one thing, and this is probably isn't new, you probably heard this before, I think not traveling too fast. I think that's definitely a mistake that we did in the beginning, which totally normal, especially when you first start doing this, you think you want to see everything, right? So for us, that first year that we traveled was pretty difficult for us. And I think at a point we thought, is this really what we want to do? Is this really working for us? Because especially when you're in kind of a lot of tension with your partner, like in a small space, like that's not good, right? And the kids definitely can feel that too. So I think for us, we recognize like, whoa, we are traveling maybe I don't know if it was every week or every 2 weeks. And I don't even know if it was about the cadence that we were traveling so much. I think this was a huge part of it too. It was the mindset that we kind of going from we were in vacation mode mindset, right?
Mhm.
Because we were in all of these beautiful places, we wanted to see and do all of these things and cram it all in. We wanted to go to all the nice restaurants. We were blowing through our money. We wanted to, yeah, just do all the things because we were in a very much vacation mindset. So I think once we kind of like took a step back, and I specifically remember me and my husband having this conversation, like, actually, this isn't a vacation, right? This is our lifestyle now. This is just everyday life. So we need to figure out a cadence, a routine that's going to work well for us, because we're not, we're going to burn ourselves out very, very quickly. So I think what we found for us, for the most part, and we're going to attempt to do the same thing when we go international, because I think it just works for us, is trying to keep the week as kind of routine and, I don't know, say normal, but as routine as possible, right? Like the kids have a normal bedtime. Like we probably eat at home a lot during the week, right? We don't maybe do so many adventures during the week, other than like maybe going to the park or something like that. But we kind of like save that for the weekends, or that's kind of what we did. We would
Mhm.
keep it pretty routine during the week. Then Fridays was usually our big adventure day, where we'd go, we call it adventure day, go do something fun. Saturdays too. Usually Sundays was kind of a chill, like reset day. So we didn't try to like, cram it into all of that time. But I feel like, yeah, that really helped us switching out of like, actually, it's not vacation. This is our life now, right? So we need to figure out how it's going to work for us. And then I think also with the whole travel burnout, I think honestly, it's kind of a little bit of trial and error to see what exactly is going to work for your family. But I think, yeah, just really figuring out what actually like works for us, right? Like how with this lifestyle is going to be, the best for our family. And I think the most beautiful thing about these lifestyles is that you can always pivot. So I think for us specifically, what we found was a really good kind of routine cadence was that we would travel for about 6 to 8 months out of the year in the RV. Just we usually pick like a zone, like the West Coast or like the Midwest or the East Coast. That's kind of how we did it. Also with that, we quickly found that, well, in the beginning, we really focused on sites and like, going to national parks and stuff. But then later, we actually kind of realized what we liked better was connecting with people. So, like, picking it based on people. So, just, I don't even know, like random third cousins that we hadn't seen for a while, but we knew that they live in a certain state, like stopping in that state, right? Old high school friends, like stopping in that state. And we called it like our friends and family tour. We kind of like that better. Of course, there were still sites and things that we saw, but we just for us, we're people. So we like that, or like a mix of people and sites type of thing. So we would travel for 6 to 8 months out of the year. Then we'd come and kind of rest and reset and come back to Texas for the winter and spend a lot of time with our family, like usually November, December, January, February, and then head out again in March. And so that kind of balance really like worked for us, but I know a lot of other families, they'll kind of do it in seasons, right? So maybe if their kids want to play sports, they always go to a certain area to play sports for the fall or something, right? Or they always go to a certain, I know like for the international community, like Bansko is a really big one for winter. So they always go to Bansko for winter, right? So I think, yeah, just like figuring out what works for your family. And if it doesn't work, you pivot and you do something else until you kind of find like what fits.
That makes sense. And kind of to sum it up, I mean, well, a lot of people start out there in that vacation mode, and where you're used to it your whole life. You go on a trip, you go see the sights, you go, 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 go,
Right.
and then you burn out and you take a week off of just sitting around doing nothing. Yeah. But what you're suggesting is to be a little bit more introspective and see what you enjoy, focus on those types of activities, spread it out over time because you're not in a hurry anymore because you don't have to get back after a week or 7 days, 10 days to get back to work type
Yeah.
situation. So is that right? That kind of sum it up a little bit there?
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
I
Yes.
love that. And I
Mhm.
mean, with your therapist, your counselor hat on, are there any specific routines or practices that can help prevent burnout or help get you out of that burnout mode if you're in it right now?
Yeah. So I would definitely think, I think sometimes a really good thing, especially if you're deep in it, maybe you're like thinking about like, is this the life for me? Or, just having a lot of those big questions. I think what's really important is going back to your why. I think all of families who do this have a why, right? Like why they wanted to do this in the first place, whether that's to give something different for their kids, to take the time now, this lifestyle is work and it's definitely there's some sacrifices to be made, right? Like it's not just we're not all trust fund people like sometimes people think, right? Like
Right.
it it definitely takes work and it's definitely challenging too to like move around all the time. So I think going back to your why of like why you got into this in the first place, I think sometimes that can be really helpful to kind of ground you and like okay, like I remember like why I'm doing this, right? Like why I'm like submitting myself through all of these challenging things. I think that can be, really helpful. I saw this actually on a Facebook post and I loved it. Someone was saying, like, hey, what's your family's mantra for maybe when you're having a tough travel day or like a tough time with travel? Like, what's your family's go to kind of like mantra or saying? And I just love that so much. And so it made me think of ours, and I feel like ours is Finding Dory. There's a moment and she talks about like, "Just keep swimming, just keep swimming, just keep swimming, swimming, swimming." So that's kind of like ours, like, just keep going, like, it's okay, like, you got this, right? Like, so I think having something like that, like, just and that can be a really fun family activity, just sitting down and being like, what do we wanna really remember when we're at each other's throats and kind of say to help break the ice and, like, keep us motivated, right? But people had a lot of really great ideas for different mantras that I thought were really cute on there. So I think that's some of them, and just in terms of kind of routine self-care stuff, I think it's just because you're traveling, right? You don't have to like let all that go. I think knowing like maybe what worked for you when you were in a home, that's probably the same thing that's going to like work for you now, So if it's, I know for us also a big thing is recognizing for me and my partner, me and my husband, is that when you're doing this lifestyle, you don't get a whole lot of time alone from the kids, right? Because there's not just like mom and dad or grandparents that you can call and drop the kids off. It's a lot of time with the kids all the time. And that can be sometimes a lot. So I think for us, we recognize like, and you can't just, well, it's not as easy to do like date nights and stuff, right? So you have to be kind of pretty intentional about connecting with your partner. If either that's after the kids go to bed and you do like a picnic outside or something, right? Or specifically for us, it was asking for like, hey, I need an afternoon to like just, my thing is like, I love to go thrifting and like go check out the local coffee shop. So I'd be like, I need an afternoon to like go do a little thrifting and like go get a coffee by myself, and he would be like, hey, I need an afternoon to like go do, his thing kind of like by himself. Right. So I think that was really helpful for us when we kind of reached that like burnout thing. But I think, yeah, just whatever normally would help fill your cup, whether or not you're traveling, don't forget that when you're traveling. So if that is like quiet mornings or working out or, some people meditation or prayer, all of that stuff, you don't want to forget that just because you're traveling.
That's very cool. Those are three really good pieces of advice. I mean, start out by remembering your why you started this lifestyle in the first place. Find a mantra, write it down, voice it. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
putting that thing out in the world really helps make it. And I think I got to figure out ours. I think we have too many mantras in our family,
Yeah,
and
it's kind of fun to think about what
it
it can
is.
be. Yeah.
It is. I like yours. Just keep swimming, just keep going. Keep moving on.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And then finally, I mean, figure out what worked for you in the past and see if you can find a way to make that work in your presence.
Great.
Because like for me, I like to go out for walks. I get itchy feet. I get stuck in the same place for too long. I got to get outside, even if the rest of the family's comfortable. I'm just gonna go out for a walk or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So those are great. Those are great pieces of advice. What about people who are just like right now, they're stuck in their travels. Maybe they've been doing fast travel for a long time now and they're a little burnt out. What would you suggest?
Yeah, so I would definitely, maybe suggest taking a step back. And if you do have a partner, I think just having like an honest conversation with them about how you're feeling. I think sometimes too with that, it's thinking about like, what do you need, to help? Like, a common thing that we use in therapy is kind of like the magic wand question, right? Like if you had a magic wand and you could just use it and all of your problems would go away, like what would that be, or what would you need to kind of like get there? What would that look like? So kind of, yeah, just be a little introspective of like, what do you need to help you feel less overwhelmed, burnt out, etc. when traveling? And maybe it's that you want to take a break, right? And kind of like rest for a little bit and just like chill. That's okay. Maybe it's that, yeah, you want to move slower. Maybe it's that you want to think about like having a home base, but traveling, right? Again, I think there's such a cool thing about this lifestyle. Literally, families do it so differently, right? And there's so many different ways that you can do it. You don't have to like be in a box, but you only have to like do it this way, right? And again, I think it's just what is working for your family, right? Maybe it's that you want, more time to focus on your business or something else. And so you find like a world schooling hub or, something to where the kids can go and also get like, fun socialization and stuff, and you get some more extra time by yourself, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's just really thinking about what do you feel like you need. Maybe it's, for sometimes it's talked to my clients a lot about this, like sometimes it's releasing that control a little bit, right? We can feel really, really overwhelmed and burnt out, but then it's hard for us to ask for help, or they don't do it right. So we do it all ourselves, right? Or we want things done like our way. So I think we have to kind of release control a little bit. Whenever I'm thinking about things, it's like, are there things that I can delegate here, right? Like, are there things that really aren't that important that I can kind of just get off my to-do list? How can I prioritize here? So trying to think about it kind of like that, if you're just feeling really like stuck and overwhelmed with maybe all the things you have to do or traveling or etc.
Very, very interesting. So to kind of put that in the point of view of somebody who's right now doing it, I think I love that you mentioned our World School hubs and pop-ups. Those are a really great way. We use them all the time to try to reignite that
Yeah,
motivation, the enthusiasm that we have for this, because you get to hear other stories, see that other people are going through it. You're not alone type situation.
sure.
Sometimes I found that it's good to take a vacation from your
Yeah.
lifestyle. You're not on
Yeah.
vacation. So you can
Yeah.
do things like we do. We use it as a way of transportation, but it's kind of a vacation also when we take a cruise. But
I love it.
it's a one-way cruise, so it's taking us to a
Right.
location. But you're still pampered while you're there.
Right. I love that. Yes, you're right. That's a great idea. We kind of did that when we were in the New York area. We did like a vacation in New York and it was like a legit, vacation. We stayed in a hotel. It was so fun and we had like the best time. We loved that trip. So yeah, that's a great idea.
The hard thing that you mentioned though is giving up control on anything, like delegating it out.
Yes. It's
So,
definitely, can be a tricky one. I remember when I was a young mom, or not a young mom, but like a first time mom, and I had to leave for like a weekend training. And I think my daughter was like maybe like 6 months or something. And I had to leave her with my husband, and I was really anxious and nervous. And of course, I knew he could like take care of her, but she had a very specific routine. And like, I had her like, I'm not gonna say I had her like I wanted her, but I was very particular in certain things because I was kind of a first time anxious mom. Like second kid, I'm like, I it's fine. But with her, I was very, I think, type A. So I remember leaving and like, okay, you got to do this to put her down. She likes this. You got to do this. You got to do this. You got to do this. Right. And then I never forget, it was like 9 p.m. or 10 p.m., way past her bedtime. She went to bed like at 7. And he like texted me a picture of them and she was in her PJs and they were like watching TV and he was like, yeah, I can't get her down. So I just brought her out with me to like watch TV. And I was just like, in that moment, I just chuckled to myself and I was just like, you know what? Dads just do things differently, and it's not wrong or worse or better than mine. It's just like different. So I had to release control in that moment. It was fine. She was fine. So I think sometimes in life, when we just get really, it's like taking a step back and thinking like, is there anything that I'm doing that I really don't have to, and that I really can get some help in or delegate.
yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of people who just related to that story and they're like, "Yep, that's my spouse. That's my spouse in a nutshell."
Yes, for sure.
Well, I know I want to talk about your travels too because it's pretty exciting that you've been doing this. So, what are some memorable moments of these past 4 or 5 years that you've been RVing? I mean, these are some really interesting ideas traveling around the country in an RV.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. There's like so many. We, like I said, our first trip was on the West Coast. So we did like Yellowstone, the Grand Tetons, and all of that. I remember when we got to the Grand Tetons, we stayed a little bit outside of Jackson Hole, boondocking, which is like basically having no hookups, kind of in the middle of nowhere. And at first, the Tetons like mountainscape was like had a lot of fog, so we couldn't really like see it. And I just remember like that, I don't know, it was second or third day when the fog lifted. And it's such a stunning view. You think it's like fake, how beautiful the Tetons look. And I just remember thinking, like, oh my gosh, like this is just so cool that we can experience it. And it's like right outside our window, just seeing like this beautiful beautiful view. So I definitely remember, yeah, just like the West Coast. We love the West Coast. Like I said before, we did an East Coast tour, and that was kind of a lot of our big cities. So we had that trip to New York was super fun. We stayed in a hotel a couple blocks off of Times Square. We took the kids to like FAO Shores, and we just ate the best food. And we walked around the city. We felt like like city people. We rode the subway like champs. I was super proud of us. That was just a really fun trip. We really, really enjoyed it. We were nervous because the kids were pretty young and we weren't sure how it was going to go. I think a big thing with that trip that we built in that I talk about a lot in my coaching is, building in breaks when you're kind of like exploring, right? Especially for young kids, you're not going to be able to like go as much as when you're single or just with you and your partner. So we built in like a for sure downtime. Let's go back and rest and then kind of go out, a little bit maybe, because again, this was more a vacation where we go out a little bit later in the evening, maybe to push it past their bedtime a little bit, right? So that was a super like fun trip. We traveled with my sister. She and her husband also had lived in an RV for a little bit, and their infant, my nephew. And so that we have a lot of really fun memories traveling with them for a little bit. That's when we went on the West Coast. We traveled with some friends of ours. That was really fun. And kind of like I said, just being able to see a lot of people who we normally like wouldn't, when you only have like 2 weeks off, you're not going to go see some random third cousin that you don't, or even like your close friends, right? Like you probably aren't going to go see them if they live, no offense to Ohio. We actually loved Ohio, but like if they live in the middle of Ohio, you're probably going to go to, a beach or Disney World or somewhere, some vacation place that you want to go to. So again, I think that's one thing we just really surprised us. Honestly, we wouldn't have said like, oh yeah, a big, benefit is going to see all of our friends in these kind of random places that we normally wouldn't go visit. But yeah, we had some friends that lived outside of Ohio. I don't think I've ever been to Ohio, but we loved them. And we actually really fell in love with Cincinnati and that whole area. And so we would go see them every time we were in that area. We would stop and go see them, and we had like the best time. So many, memorable moments. It's hard to pick one.
Yeah. Well, how has traveling around the country like changed you? There's so many people who don't even leave their own city, let alone see the whole countryside like you have in your RV.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I always had I feel like a pretty good gratitude practice. I would use gratitude a lot in my old job when I worked with trauma. It was like child trauma. So it was tough work. And I remember I leaned on gratitude so hard during those years. So I feel like I had a good grasp of it. But, I think it's something different when you get to see all of these things that, yeah, maybe your parents never even got to see in their lifetime, or that lots of people don't ever get to see in their lifetime, right? Just that immense gratitude of like, I'm so thankful to be here and to be able to experience this, not just myself, but with my kids. I think a huge thing that traveling taught us, both me and my husband, is probably gave us a lot of confidence. It was pretty ballsy, I feel like, for two younger parents with, well, again, my son was literally not born on the road, but he was the only thing he's ever known up until now was the RV. We had him when we were still traveling in the RV, about like 1 year in, I think. So I think just being able to do everything that we did, get the RV, travel, have two kids in the RV, like figure that out. It gave us a lot of confidence. Like, if we can figure this out, we can like pretty much figure anything out, maybe that's a little bit too cocky. And I think we were very naive going into it. Like, we didn't know what exactly we were getting into, but hey, we really just figured it out. I think it really improved our communication, because I feel like we had to really, living in a small space, like we really had to communicate, like, I need a break, or I'm missing connection time with you. Can we like carve out some time, just the two of us after the kids go to bed, or, or, hey, this isn't really, the speed or going here, this isn't really working for me, or whatever, right? Like, we had to really, I think our communication like got a lot better. I think, getting to be with my kids, I think it's like a long, for a long extended period of time, where maybe if we were in Sixton Brooks, they would probably be in daycare, or, I wouldn't see them. Obviously I worked, but like in between sessions, or just having that connection time, that quality time with them when they were young, for me, that's just like priceless, right? Because I just remember thinking, sometimes I would struggle with like, oh gosh, I could be doing this and this with my business, or I really want to like do this or do this. And But then I would just, and for everybody, it's different, right? And so it's okay if you're in a different space. But for me, I was like, people with mental health struggles are always going to be there. That's always going to be a thing, right? So my business, I know, is always going to be there. But I just feel like this season in time, it was really about me like enjoying my time with them, and spending a lot of quality time with them. And I was thankful with RV life. Like, I feel like we got that
Yeah.
gift,
Yeah. Yeah. Our children
Yeah.
are forever aging, and so are we, and never get those
Yeah,
moments back. But like you said, I mean, there's always going to be ability for you to work in your space. So that's a really good mindset, I think, and it helps to have that type of connection with your children at this young age.
for sure. For sure.
So like speaking of your kids, they're young, respectively three
Yeah.
and six, right? So how about education while traveling? What approaches do you use? How do you balance that with your exploration, that type of thing?
Yeah. So, I would never, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people in this lifestyle say this. I would never consider myself like a homeschool mom or like I want to homeschool my kids. Like that was never really like a goal of mine, But when we started exploring this lifestyle and I started following a lot of people that were doing this lifestyle and homeschooling, unschooling, worldschooling, there's so many different names, right, for it.
Hmm.
Um, I was like, okay, this sounds interesting. So I started just doing some more research of my own. I read this, I would highly recommend it, although it's probably going to make you a little bit angry. But it's called Free to Learn by Peter Gray. He just talks about like the history of the education system and just how kids actually learn. I'm huge into like development and brain development. That's a big part of my therapy practice. So that definitely kind of piqued my interest. And once I kind of just learned a little bit more about why traditional school doesn't always work for every kid and just this concept of like unschooling and allowing your kids to kind of follow their own interest, you help kind of facilitate that and help them with that. It definitely sounded really cool. My husband was a little bit more skeptical of it. He was like, I don't even understand how, like, how this works. And I think there can be a lot of misconceptions with unschooling, right? It's not just about like never, teaching them anything kind of thing.
Lord of the
So it took a
Flies.
minute. Right. So it took a minute for us to kind of both get on board and like figure out, and I think we're still figuring out what we're doing with them,
Yeah.
but so I would say we take more of an unschooling approach, although we're pretty open just to like alternative ways of learning for them and figuring out again like what works best for them. I think one of the main things for me was, and I love teachers and I have some clients that are teachers and friends that are teachers and I so appreciate teachers. But I think sometimes people can be like, well, how are you even, educated enough or you're not a teacher, to be able to like to teach your kids, right? I know some people say that. And I guess for me, it's like, well, when I tell some of my coaching clients, it's like, well, if you know your kid, you're educated enough to help teach them, right? Because if you know your kid, you have the skills. You have the skills to be able to help teach them and guide them in different ways, right? Because you know kind of what they're into, how they learn, right? What they need, like how you can best facilitate that. So that kind of shift really like helped me, but they're still pretty young. So we don't do a lot of like, kind of, even homeschool where like they sit down and do like worksheets and stuff like that. The one big thing for me was like the reading. And I think that was part of my own deschooling. A lot of like people talk about like deschooling yourself with basically like letting go of, comparison and what you think they should be doing according to like the traditional school model. So I was really concerned at first about like, she has to like be reading by like 5 years old, or whatever. But then as I did more research and et cetera, like actually, no, that's not even, well, everyone to their own, but the research shows no, like it's even better for them to learn later, like 7 years older, et cetera, kind of thing. And that so many people I've talked to is like their kids struggled and then they just like picked it up. Right. So I'm a little bit more structured, I guess, with reading because that's something that's important to me. I'm a big reader. And so we do have a book called like 100 Days to like read. That's like you can do different sheets, kind of like more phonics. So I try to do that one with her. Honestly, she doesn't love it. So I'm trying to do, again, with unschooling, follow like what she likes. She's really into handwriting, like writing letters and stuff like that. So we've kind of been focusing more on that. And then just, I will incorporate the sounds like when she's writing. So that's kind of what we do more. She's really into math. So we do a lot of just like counting or talking about like in different ways. It just kind of comes up naturally. You don't even think about it. But when you start to have this mindset that everything can be kind of a lesson or like a teachable moment, it's almost like sometimes when you're pregnant, then all of a sudden you see pregnant people everywhere, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing. You begin to just, oh, like this could be a really good moment, like when we're cooking or something, right? And just talking about different ways. So you got to kind of train your brain to think like that, because normally, right, if they're in traditional school, you might just not even worry about that. You're like, oh, they're getting it at school, right? So I think it's just a different way of approaching life, really, and that anything can kind of be a teachable thing. Anything that they're interested in, you can explore. And I love when she like asks questions and it's like, I don't really know, let's look that up together, or let's like figure it out together. That's been really cool with
Yeah.
that. So that's kind of what we do a lot with her. With the younger one, really, we just kind of let him play. We don't do a whole lot with him. Although he, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's reading or whatever, he really knows his letters like kind of a little bit more than she does, which is interesting. So I don't know. And we didn't really do anything. So I don't really know.
Yeah, kids learn, and sometimes you look at them and you find out, oh, how did you figure that out? And
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
they're really good. They're sponges. And so as a teacher and everything like that, I see it, and in my own son, I'm like, wow, when did you pick that up? That's not
Yeah.
something I taught you.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. He just like, oh, my mom was wearing a shirt with letters and he just started naming the letters. And we were like, okay, like we never, that's awesome.
That is awesome.
Uh, yeah.
Well, now you're on another big adventure where you're transitioning to international travel. So you're planning on going overseas, what you mentioned August to me earlier, right?
Yes. So we kind of like made this decision at the end of last year. And I don't know if maybe it was part of like this travel burnout thing, but we just, not that we feel like we've seen everything in the US, because we definitely haven't, but we just, I don't know if we were just kind of searching, itching. I don't really can really tell you exactly what it was, but we just wanted to switch it up a little bit. I think sometimes for us, and I know me, sometimes other families talk about this, and it doesn't always have to be this way. So I'll say again, it just depends on your family, but a little bit like a ticking clock, because we just know as kids get older, we're always going to include our kids in the conversation and we want to take their opinions. And, if they absolutely really want to be somewhere and be in sports and stuff, like we're going to take that into consideration, right? They're not going to get like the final say, but we're definitely going to take it into consideration. So that's always kind of in the back of our minds. Like, sometimes we just hear the older they get, the harder it is to continue this lifestyle. Of course, there's different ways we can do it and make it work for sure. So we just were kind of feeling that way. And so we, again, and I don't know if the algorithm, my Instagram feed or something, how they can read your mind, just started showing me more families who were traveling internationally. So we heard about Boundless Life, which is like a program that kind of helps families go like internationally. And so we just, kind of started looking more into that and decided that that is what we wanted to be, our next big adventure. And so we came back home and we're doing a lot of the prep work in order to make that happen, like selling, the truck, the RV, minimizing once again, like even more, figuring out where we want to go, how we want to do it, everything, visas, passports, all of that fun stuff. So we're kind of in the thick of it right now with that. But of course, like anything, when you first start planning, you get excited and thinking of places you want to go. And so, yeah, we're excited.
How far out in the future do you normally like to plan? And where
I
does it
don't
get
know.
too
Yeah.
too much of that emotional fatigue in you if you go too far out? So
Yeah, I'm a big planner, and so that was something that I had to kind of like reel in a little bit. My husband's more of like, less of a planner. I don't know. It's like you always like have to marry each other, right? But so with the RV, I would want to plan it out, a lot. But as the time gone on, yeah, you just get tired of planning it, right? So that you do it less, and then it just kind of like works out. So I'm trying to find a middle ground for that. I don't know if I've quite figured it out yet, but so for now, we have the rest of this year planned out so far ish.
Okay.
Not even really
Ish.
fully, but ish. But we have we have at least months and countries that we want to go to. We're kind of narrowing it down to cities and like where we want to stay and all that stuff. We are planning on doing Boundless Life September, October, November. So that's this 3 months there taken. So we're right now planning like August and then after that. So in August, we know that we want to be in the UK. We actually just booked, we're super excited. We're going to venture into house sitting and see how that goes. So we booked our first house sit. It was like the perfect, I feel like, it's the perfect house sit. So we're super excited for like almost 2 weeks. So we just need to figure out the other like 2 weeks and we'll be good for August.
Excellent. Yeah, we love house sitting, so you're gonna enjoy it, I think.
Okay, good.
We've always enjoyed house sitting, and we've talked extensively about it with people. So it it's a great way to travel because you get to see more, do more. Your money goes further. A lot of things. If you're like us, we're pet people. We can't travel with pets, so we get our pet
Exactly.
experience out of it. That type of thing. So
Exactly. Yeah, it seems like
excellent.
when I first learned about it, it seemed like the perfect fit. So we're excited.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So yeah, and, yeah, it sounds like you're planning. It's like more of the macro plan first, and then you go in and find the little details as they go. So
That's how I do. Yeah. And then,
that's
and even like, I used to even plan like what we're going to do and, all of that, the RV, but kind of there towards the end, I was like, we'll get there, then we'll figure out what we want to do. And I mean, obviously I know some things you kind of have to book in advance, but for the most part, the very minute details, I leave kind of more to the last minute.
yeah. I'm a little different. Is I'm either a no planner or I'm a macro planner. I don't like the micro or the minuscule things. My wife is
Yeah.
amazing at that, and I have to help sometimes to relieve the pressure. But
Yeah.
yes, but I'm more
Yeah.
of a macro planner. I like that big idea. Where are we going? What's the big journey?
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's fill in the
Yeah.
details
Really.
later.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Well, what excites you the most about this transition to leaving the U.S. and going overseas?
Yeah, I mean, just everything. Me and my husband love traveling. We love traveling even before the kids. We did our honeymoon in Greece. So that's where we're going back with Boundless is in Greece. So we're super, super excited about Greece. We absolutely love Greece. But really just everything on my bucket list and what has been on my bucket list for a long time is like Southeast Asia, like Thailand, Vietnam. So I'm super stoked, like cannot wait to go visit there. My husband's a little bit more hesitant about it. He's just very concerned that we don't really love seafood, so he's very worried we're not going to find something to eat. I'm like, honey, I'm sure we will find something to eat. I'm sure we'll be fine. But anyways, so I'm really really excited about that. And yeah, I think just doing something a little bit different with the kids and just how cool, and I never take it for granted that we're going to be able to show them all of these really cool places. I'm a really big history person, so there's just so much history in Europe. We were laughing actually because the house was built in like 1750, like before our country was founded.
Wow.
So we're like, it's just crazy, that amount of history. So being able just to feel, I hope that they get into it with me, but like sharing about history of all of these places, like I'm really excited about that.
That's really cool. Yeah. Very, very neat. Well,
Yeah.
well, before we get into a little bit about your counseling with digital nomads and finish up with that, I wanted to do a little travel trivia with you.
Oh gosh. Okay.
Ah, so can you name 4 presidents carved into Mount Rushmore.
Okay, you've been there. So it's Washington.
Washington, yes.
Okay. Lincoln.
Lincoln,
Okay. Roosevelt.
yes. One more.
Okay. And what's the last one?
He was a prolific writer.
Oh, not thinking of like Hamilton, but he was the president. It's on like the tip of my tongue, but I cannot think of it. I don't know.
Jefferson.
Jefferson.
Jefferson, yes.
Terrible trivia.
All right, yes. So, all right, now what is the largest state by land area in the United States?
Well, I know Texas and California and Hawaii are pretty big. Land area. Is it Texas?
Alaska.
Oh, Alaska. I didn't think about Alaska.
Everybody forgets about Alaska.
I'm forgetting about Alaska. Yes, okay, Alaska. That makes sense. Yeah.
All right, which desert in the U.S. is the hottest and driest in North America?
Okay, desert. So maybe like in Arizona or in California. I know there's that other desert. I can't think of the name of it. Death Valley?
Death
No, I don't
Valley.
know.
Yes, you got it. That's right.
Okay.
Very good.
Um,
All right, what river forms the natural border between Texas and Mexico?
the Rio Grande?
The Rio Grande,
Yeah.
yes.
I know that because I'm here from here.
right. And finally, what is the largest canyon in the United States?
The Grand Canyon?
The Grand Canyon.
There
Excellent.
you go. Yay. We did it.
Very good. All right. Next time, you'll have to have some questions about Europe since that's where you're going next.
Oh gosh. Okay.
All right. Finally, let's give you a chance. I wanted you to talk about your counseling work, your Facebook group, all the things, mindset and travel mastery for families.
Yeah. So, like I said, with my counseling, I have an online practice where I see clients, a lot of like Gen Z millennials who are kind of just working through past trauma. With counseling, it's a little bit specific with licensing and regulations. So, I can only see clients currently who live in Texas because that's where my license is in Texas. So if you're in Texas and that's you, I'm happy to chat with you. But yeah, you're just kind of like restricted to your state. Although I'm currently looking into kind of where my interest is pulling me is working with kind of mental health, mental wellness with families like ours or specifically like expats or just like location independent families who live in other countries. So the licensing is a little bit weird when it comes to other countries. So I'm still trying to kind of figure that out. But I'd love to, see families like that live like elsewhere outside of the United States. But with my Facebook group, so I created my Facebook group. It's Digital Nomads United. And it's kind of just a place for families to go and feel supported. And if they have questions of like starting this lifestyle, how to do it, all of that good stuff, you can find that in that Facebook group. I have like 3 freebies that I offer to families. I always get asked about budget. So I just created like a budget one with our sample budget from our actual budget from the RV, and then obviously proposed sample budget that we might use for international.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get access to that. I also have just like a digital nomads checklist, like once you're first starting, like what do you need to do, packing, it like pretty much covers everything. It's like a good starter checklist. And then lastly, kind of a little bit more of what we're talking about today. It's called Wonder Wisely, just how to build the perfect itinerary, what's a good routine for your family, like how to make traveling as smoothly as possible. So I give a lot of good ideas in there, like sample like routines and stuff like that. So there's that. And then I have probably like 20 trainings in there. So I used to go live every week on a different topic, like kind of like this, or I've covered everything from like visa stuff to packing to mindset stuff to, I have so many trainings in there. So those are all available in that group. Like I said, like 20 trainings. But yeah, that's what that group is. Like I said, I'm in the middle of a little bit of a transition with my coaching program in the group, just trying to figure out. When I first started it, it was to kind of help families get into this lifestyle that maybe were struggling with like mindset stuff or didn't know where to start or like needed the kind of routine or needed help with online work or didn't know how to world school their kids. But as I've been doing it and thinking about it, I feel like where my kind of, I like to think about it like my zone of genius lies is more with the families that maybe are already doing this and kind of helping them with their own mental health, mental wellness. So I haven't quite figured that out yet, but I will. And so if you want to be a part of it, just feel free to join the group and I'm going to give updates as I figure it out myself.
Yeah, I love it. The group has been around for a little bit now. I remember getting invited a couple months ago, and it's just now reached over 200 members, which is awesome.
Yeah. No, I'm super excited about that. Yeah, I was like, it's just interesting starting a Facebook group, but yeah, I'm really excited about that number.
It's active, which means there's a lot of people actually posting in it pretty often, so which is great. I know you post in it a lot, and I scan through it all the time for little tidbits and pieces of advice. I love that you have the free resources in there for folks to use, and I definitely recommend folks that are new to this lifestyle or even those that are experiencing that travel fatigue just to go in there, check out the resources, check out the tips, ask questions, because it is a good resource that hasn't been there before and is now that you can take advantage of. So
Thank you. I appreciate that.
you're welcome. And it's been great having you on today. Um, do you have any parting advice for anybody, any of the digital nomads out there?
Yeah, I guess my parting advice would be one, if you're thinking about this lifestyle and thinking like maybe you can't do it or having a lot of doubts, very common, but I am here to say that like I always say me and my husband really aren't that special.
Oh,
And I mean we are special, but not in that like we're just normal everyday, people, family. So we can do it. Literally anybody can do it. So I was just always encouraged if you're thinking about it like it's kind of, I know it's cheesy, right? But they always say you never regret the things that you did, right? You only regret the things that you didn't do. So I always say go for it. If you hate it, you hate it. You go back to sticks and bricks, not a big deal. And yeah, for all the families that are out there, we also love to meet up with families. So if you're traveling in Europe or you want to meet up, we're happy to chat and connect. Or yeah, if you just need any support or sometimes just like that validation of, gosh, like I'm just really struggling. I know I should be grateful for this lifestyle, but it's also really hard. I'm happy to chat and lend a listening ear.
very good. And for those of you listening, in the show notes down below, we'll have links to how to get in touch with her, as well as the Facebook group and all of that. So definitely check that out. But Addie, it was great talking to you today. I hope that we can have you on again another season after you've been traveling overseas and see how the whole transition went and your
I
thoughts
love
again.
that. Yeah, I love that. I love to share and be like, oh, we're so burnt out, or it's been amazing. Maybe a little bit of both.
Maybe a little bit of both. Yes. All right.
Yes.
Well, thank you, everybody. And again, it's been a pleasure to have Addie on. I hope you all got as much out of this as I did, especially thinking about and talking about travel fatigue and the strategies that you can use to mitigate it, because we all go through this type of thing. So, again, a big thank you, Addie, and everybody out there. Remember, just keep exploring, keep being you, and remember your why. Take care.
Love it. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Our Offbeat Life podcast. Join us each week as we share the stories, tools, and inspiration you need to make that leap into the unknown. We just want to travel. We just want to roll. We just want to travel the world, the world, the world. Travel the world.